Welcome to part 2 of the MPC template 80s weekend vibe video. If you missed the first one, it's going to be linked somewhere up here where we go over what is involved in this template. And if you want to grab this template and follow along, just click the link below, head over to Patreon, where all the Patreon subscribers can get this project file, as well as all the project files for all the tutorials on this channel. Now in this video, we're actually going to go through the track we made using this template and some little workflow advantages that you have when you use the template. So let's dive in. So let's go back over into the beat sequence, have another listen to it, and then go through how everything was laid out and some of the advantages of having a template like this as your starting point for creating. All right, so one of the big advantages of working based off of this template structure is, let's say, if I wasn't quite sure about this kick, I could just quickly come in, select this kick that I have. We have the whole track playing, but I can just simply use transpose and go into these different kicks and try them out. And I don't know if you heard it, if you're listening with headphones or on decent speakers, there was a really subby kick that actually brought the bottom end out quite a bit. So that one right there is what I'm going to settle on. And you can do that with any track simply by going in and then selecting the track and switching to it and then selecting the different sounds. Let's say I want to switch to that. I could just highlight all the ones that I'm currently using transpose, just bring them down. And I'm going to stick with the original snare. I like the way it fits in the mix, but you can easily go through, audition different ones, and really quickly replace all of the different sounds of that snare just by transposing all these MIDI notes up or down. So let's jump over to the claps. Now the claps is an example of layering a whole bunch of different sounds to get really thick textures with these claps by themselves. So if we come over to our main, and I'm just going to solo the claps. And then I came over to the bass line and just had to play around with it and came up with this bass line. And then we added some chords on top of that. So let's come out of here. Let's actually go into mute. And you can see how quickly it is to mute things out. So then we added these chords on top of it. And then what came next was using the same chords, but then turning on the ARP, which if you don't know is shift and note repeat, and then adding an arpeggiation over the existing chords and that bass line, which sounded like this. And the way that movement is happening on there is holding down menu, going into this to the program edit, and adding automation on chords 2, adding automation to the cutoff right there. And you'll see the filter open up as it goes to the end, which adds a big crescendo. and then pulls it back. And the way you do that is if you're inside of the program edit, again, to look into how quickly it is to get into there from the main, if you hit menu and then just go program edit, and then just simply flick this from read into write, so when it's read, and then we just use our cue links, go over, and now we can add automation. So let's say we wanted to add automation to this resonance. It's really that quick and easy to add all that movement to your sound. So when you're composing your songs, just make sure to give each instrument its own storyline by adding movement. The filter cutoff is a great way to do that. And if we take another listen, we did it on the chords and the bass. All the filters on all three of these open up as we get towards the end of this, just to have that big open moment and bring it back to center. So for these three melodic elements, they were done simply just by using notes mode in the bass. Let's go really quick over here to bass and shift notes. In here, it was simply just notes. Using that, and then when we came over into the chords, we simply just changed this into chords, and now we're able to follow that bass line. Just playing the chords inside of that scale. And then after those melodic elements, just added a couple of effects just to add some texture and some impact. If we take a look here, there's just a hit right up here. A white noise hit that happens on 16, and that is it for all of the effects. However, when you're inside of this template, check out pad number 3, because we did something special on pad number 3. Let's go into program edit and let's take a look at the samples, and you'll notice there's 2 layers inside of here. Now, it's the same sample, but we layered it up and then did sample cycling, where we go into the cycle right here. And what that gives us the ability to do, a lot of time on these effects, when you have a swell going into an impact, it's such a pain in the ass to get the right timing so the swell hits the 1 on the impact right away. So a little trick for that is you actually load it in with sample cycling, and then on the first part of the pad, on the first layer, you just have the first section, the swell, and then you have the impact on the second time you hit it. And that makes it really easy to have that impact always hit right on the beat, because it's a simple secondary pad press of this pad right here. So if we actually listen to that in action on the beat. And all we're doing is we're hitting this 2 times, 1 time for the initial swell, and then a second time for the impact. And that way your timing of that swell and that impact are always perfect on the beat. So with everything laid out, this is our chorus, and let's take a look at just how quickly it is to arrange this with every single sound being on its own individual track, and how the mute state of the track corresponds to the actual sequence. This is how easy it would be to sequence this out. So first we're going to come in here and we're just going to copy this sequence 1 to the second one. We're going to do it, and the same thing, copy sequence 1 to 3, do it, copy sequence 1 to 4, do it, copy sequence 1 to 5, do it. Now if we look at next sequence, it's all the same thing going across all 5 of these sequences, but we can instantly start muting things, and those mutes will be attached to that sequence, so it makes the sequencing process really easy. So let's say that this is the intro, sequence 1, so we're going to name this sequence the intro. And I'm just gonna come into my mutes, and let's say I wanna start off with my guitar clips and my perks. I'm not sure, let's just have a listen. Yep, so there's my intro, sweet and simple, just a guitar clip, a little chuggy guitar, and then also some of the percussion elements. And then if I come into next sequence here and just select this one, I want this to be, let's say, verse 1. So let's call this verse 1. Come into my mutes. So now for this first verse, I'm going to mute everything. I want the bass, I want these guitars, I do want those perks, I don't want the chords. I'm gonna have the toms come in right before the pre-chorus, and let's also add some of these claps along with the bass. So great, that's my verse, but I actually want the verse to be 2 sections, each in 4 bars. So let's come back to main, because the chorus is a 6-bar chorus. Let's turn this to 4 bars. Let's go into our next sequence. Let's call this, let's call this verse 1B. Okay, and let's go into our mute state, and we had this, we had the top, we had the tops, we had the bass, we had the guitars, we don't want the chords or anything yet. We have the claps. Let's bring in the kick just to give it some energy and some push. So this would be the second half of our first verse. And again, let's bring that down just to 4 bars. Cool. And now hearing that, I actually want the intro only to be 4 bars too. So just by using these different mutes, as you can see, when we switch through, we're simply just muting and unmuting the different tracks because these mute states are directly attached to the sequence, and that makes it really quick and easy to sequence things out. So let's take a listen to what we got so far. The intro. And then I'd want to go into my pre-chorus, so I'm going to go to the next one, and let's call this the pre. And the pre, just for dramatic element and just for a little bit of tension, we're going to leave it at a full 6 bars. Let's come into our mute, but I want the chords. I want all this stuff to drop out. I want the chords. I want the tom fill to come in right before the main drop. But I still want to keep some of that groove going on. So let's keep the tops and the perks going on. And that's going to drop directly into everything all in, and we're going to call this our chorus. So let's go into the next sequence and take a look. We have an intro, first half of the verse, second half of the verse, a pre-chorus where everything drops out, and then also the chorus where everything comes in. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. thanks for sticking around, and I hope this video helped you understand some of the advantages of using a template for producing your tracks. Now, we're working on a bunch of new videos, including a full Akai Force masterclass, a studio build up and breakdown about how we're actually building the studio right back over here. But if there's anything or any suggestions that you would like to drop, please load a comment down below so we can see what y'all want to see out there. And on that note, thanks for your time, thanks for your attention. Now go create something cool.